Okay everybody, first of all I want to start this video off by saying I'm really sorry if I'm croaky or if I'm sniffling a lot or anything like that. I've woken up yesterday really and I just didn't feel 100%, and today I've woken up and I feel a little bit worse. So if I'm a little bit out of sync with the last video, that's why I'm just not feeling 100%. Second of all, if you haven't already checked it out, I will link it in the description below. Please go and check out the Two's Company video that me and Jim put up. It went up yesterday to me, but to you it will have gone up. When will it have gone up? It will have gone up on Monday. Today is Friday to you, and it will have gone up on Monday. So yeah, make sure you go and check that out. It was really good filming it. We had so much fun and we can't wait to film this weekend. So next up is this video. What's this video about? Well, in my last video, in my first video, I did say that I was going to do a live edit. So that's what this video is. Now, it's kind of lucky that I said in that last video that I was going to do a live edit, plain and simply because when I posted this photo, I got a really good response from it. Now, I got some messages on Instagram asking me where I took it, how I took it, and I got some really nice feedback and comments on Facebook as well. Just people saying really nice things, and it's always nice hearing that kind of thing. You know you're doing something right when you get that. So the fact that I said in the video before, oh, I might do a live edit and put it up tomorrow, which never ended up going up tomorrow when that video was posted, but yeah. It's kind of worked out nicely that I've had a few questions on Instagram of how I did it, and then I got such nice feedback on feedback on Facebook as well. So that's what this video is. So without further ado, I'm just going to dive straight into this. Okay, so here's the image straight off the memory card, straight into Lightroom. I did edit it before, but I've reset all the settings so I can start again just for the purposes of this video. So it may end up looking slightly different, not much, but slightly different to the version that's gone up on Instagram and the version that people commented on Facebook. So, but that doesn't really matter. So as you can see up here, we've got the camera settings that I used on the night. It's at ISO 100 at 19mm. F11, and it says it was a 61-second exposure, but I'm so sure in the video I said that I'd forgotten my remote, which means that the longest exposure I could take without the remote was 30 seconds, but I could be completely wrong. Never mind, it doesn't matter. Anyway, those are the settings that Lightroom think I used, so I'm gonna go with those ones. Also, one thing I just wanna quickly add, I'm gonna be using the loop deck to edit this photo. I haven't used it that much yet. I bought it at the photography show a few weeks ago, and I just haven't used it yet because I haven't had time to just sort of sit down and get used to it. So this is gonna be one of the first times that I use the loop deck to edit a photo. I have used it, but it takes me a little bit longer than it does when I just do it on the computer screen, so I'm just not used to it yet. But we're going to use the loop deck, so there isn't really going to be much going on with the mouse on the computer screen, but just watch the sliders at the side and you'll see what's going on. So, okay, so one of the first things that I always do with every photo, and look guys, you are going to have opinionated people out there that think how you edit something is wrong, but at the end of the day, all that matters with a photo that you're editing is that when you've finished editing, you like it. That's it. People can give you their opinions, and that's great. If they love the photo, awesome. If they don't, that's fine as well. As long as you're happy, that's all that matters. So one of the first things that I do is I will always drop my highlights by 100%. and I will up my shadows by plus 100%. To me, this completely flattens the image out. And then the next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop my exposure, because as you can see with the histogram at the top, it is slightly overexposed now. Now, throughout all of my edits, I am constantly tweaking the exposure to compensate for contrast. So first of all, let's drop that exposure, just bring that histogram down just a little bit, just so you've got a nice hill that sort of runs nice and smoothly through the center of the histogram. That's about right, just about there, about half a stop. Okay, so the next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm going to drop my blacks ever so slightly. This is just gonna add a little bit more bite and a little bit more contrast to the image. So I'm gonna drop that to around about 30. I don't wanna do it too much, just plain and simply because when I add contrast in, which is what I do next, it's gonna drop those blacks even further. So we'll add a bit of contrast. And where are we gonna go? Yeah, I like it around about there, around about 26. Okay, so what we've done is we've dropped the highlights and we've upped the shadows, which has brought all of the detail into the photo. And then we've dropped those blacks a little bit just to give it a little bit more contrast on the lower or the darker end of the photo. But to me, it's still looking a bit flat. So this is when we go back to the highlights and the shadows sliders and we start messing around with them. So at the moment, this image looks to me like the shadows are kind of taking over a little bit. So I'm going to adjust the highlights first and I'm going to slowly bring them back up until I feel that the image has got a little bit more bite. So round about there for the moment. Now the next thing, obviously the shadows slider, I'm going to bring my shadows back down again. And as you can see, this is now just adding a shed load more character to the image. Now considering that the contrast slider is only on 26, it's got a lot of contrast in it, this image has at the moment. So I'm going to bring those shadows down just a little bit more. And then to compensate for the image being quite dark now, I'm actually gonna bring my exposure back up again. Now, the reason why the exposure is one of the first things that I tweak is that as you start to edit, the photo will start to get darker. So it means that as you're editing, if the image starts getting darker, you can just up the exposure and you're not going to lose any of the quality through noise or anything like that. So at the moment, I'm actually really liking how this image is looking. It is slightly underexposed for my liking, so I can bring that exposure back up now and know I'm not going to lose any quality. Around about -30 and I'm happy. Okay, so next thing, I'm going to have to go back to the mouse for this one, but the next thing is the crop. I deliberately framed this image for a 4:5 crop. That's how I like to post on Instagram. It's how you can take up the most real estate on there, which gives you more chance of getting that double tap and getting your photos liked. So I'm gonna line up that bottom third with the edge of the pool. So you can see that's lining up absolutely perfectly. I'm just gonna hit enter now, and there we go. We've got our 4:5 crop. Already looks much better. As you can see up in the corners here, I've lost the little sort of vignetting. Well, it's a very harsh vignette. Basically, that's the adapter ring that I put on my lens, so that on my filter mount. I specifically spent the extra £20 to get the one, so that didn't happen, and it just happens anyway. So I don't know what's going on there, but either way, we've got the crop that we want now. The image is nicely exposed. We've got the crop. So next, I want to move down to my tone curve. Now, I like a more vintage looking image. So I like to lift my blacks. And the way that I do this is I'll lift them to about 13.3%. I'll drop the lower end of my shadows and I try to line it up with 15.3 on both. It's a bit fiddly, but once you've done it, 15.3 on both, and then right at the top. The reason I lift my black slightly on most of my landscape shots, sometimes I might not do it as much, sometimes I might not do it at all, but most of the time I will, because I just like to think that that's kind of part of my style. You know, I'm not the first person to do it. It's just something that I like. I like how images look. Now, the next thing that I'm noticing is I want to go back to crop. And this is what I meant, first of all, when I said that you constantly adjust things. I've just noticed that I do have a slightly wonky image. And the reason why I know that is because I know for a fact that this edge of the pool here is not directly in line with the horizon. No way. However, if I click on the side here, if you look at the top of the trees on the left-hand side and the top of the trees on the right-hand side, that is pretty much level with the horizon, okay? Just because of the way that it's framed. So that's how I now know that this photo is horizon level. Now, when I hit enter, it actually looks more natural. Okay, so the next thing that I notice about this image is that it is very blue. So I am just going to adjust my white balance slightly and I'm going to bring it back into the yellow range. So I'm going to bring it around about there. I'm going to bring it to the point where these, what are they, reeds, like dead reeds or something? These dead reeds start to pop because they were more of a yellow tone. Now, yeah, round about there, that looks good to me, and I'm using the mouse. I shouldn't be using the mouse. So yeah, anyway, we'll just do the white balance with the mouse. So that now looks to me a lot more like it was the other night, but it just doesn't seem to still have the feeling of the cold, almost grayness, but it wasn't completely monotonal, but it doesn't have that cold feeling that it did on the night. So I am just going to adjust the blue saturation ever so slightly, and I'm just going to push it up a little bit just to bring that blue back into play. There we go, nice. Now you can mess around with the hue as well, and I can take it more of a deeper blue, bring it more over towards the purple side, or I can take it the other way and take it more over to the aqua side. I'll be honest with you though, I'm really happy with the blue it came out with on that night. I might just push it slightly over. There we go, that's it. In fact, I'm going to bring it back down. There we go, that's perfect. To me, that is how it looked on that night, just the blacks weren't lifted. That, it's really, I mean, you can play around with the greens a little bit, I suppose. There isn't really much green to play with, but you can have a little bit of a play around. I don't want to go mental with any of the colors other than, well, I don't even want to go mental with the blues in this image, to be honest, but I don't really want to go crazy with all the colors in this image, plain and simply because all the colors aren't in this image. This is a very blue image, but it was a very blue evening. So yeah, I'm pretty much just going to stick with it the way it is. However, as far as the tint is concerned, it is a little bit too green. So me turning around and talking about playing with the green slider was probably a bad example, because I'm now going to remove even more of the green. So I want to give it more towards the pink side of the tint. In fact, I'm actually really happy with that and how that's come out now. So the next thing that I notice is that my whites just aren't popping as much as I want them to. So I'm going to lift them until I'm happy, and then I'm going to have to bring the exposure back down again, which again, I'm still messing in the minuses with my exposure, which is a good thing because you're not losing quality. So with my whites, just going to bring them up until I feel, see, that's too much, just until I feel that they've got a little bit more bite to them. That's it, that's nice. And then I'm just going to drop that exposure again. Now the next thing I'm noticing is that now I've made that adjustment, my contrast is too strong. So I'm going to bring my contrast back down. Perfect. There we go. Okay, and now my exposure just a little bit more. Don't want to go too mental. Right then, the next thing, or the next slider that I'm going to play with is a very controversial slider. Some photographers absolutely love it. It can be easily overdone, but a lot of photographers absolutely hate it. Me personally, I am a fan of it. I don't like pushing it too far, but I do like using it when I want to give a certain feeling. And I do want to give a certain feeling in this image. And when we use this slider, it does give a certain amount of sort of almost urban grit to any image. So I'm obviously talking about the clarity slider. Now we can whack the clarity strider straight up to 100%, and it just makes the image look absolutely awful. I can't stand that. So be very sparing with this slider, okay? Now, I am going to use it in this image just because I do want it to have that slightly urban edge to it, a little bit more grit. But like I said, you have to be sparing. You don't want to go too mental. Like that, to me, it's just got a bit more oomph. You know, just more oomph than it did before. Yeah, there we go. 30. Okay, so it turns out with this image I haven't actually been that sparing with it. Normally, you know, I would try to keep it in between the 10 and the 20 region, but I don't know. I just feel like it gives this image a little bit more character than it had before. So, okay, next thing that I'm gonna do, and I probably should have done this first to be honest, but again, it's just one of those things. It doesn't matter how you edit things as long as you're happy at the end of it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove chromatic aberration. And the second thing is I'm going to enable profile corrections, which is going to get rid of that vignetting around the edge of the image. And straight away, as soon as I've done that, and that's why this is one of the first things that you do, my image is now slightly overexposed again. So back down to the exposure tab, again, still in the minuses. Just going to bring that exposure back down. Just lift those blacks slightly. There we go. Much, much happier with the exposure on this image now. So as you can see, as I'm going through, I'm just slightly tweaking things as things are changing, just the same as how your ISO and your aperture and your shutter speed, you have to compensate when you're taking the photo. It's exactly the same when you're editing. You'll make a slight change somewhere and then instantly think, right, I need to change that again now. Now, I do want to put just a slight, nothing major, but just a slight vignette on this image. Nothing crazy, just ever so slightly, just so that your eyes get drawn into this cloud formation here that's been captured during the exposure. So next thing I'll do, I like to up my sharpening to around about 60, and then I will up my masking to 40. So either way, you're getting 100, 60 plus 40. I don't really like using noise reduction at all unless I've had to shoot at a higher ISO. So you do lose quality, and it kind of, the more you use it, it starts to make your picture look like a painting, and I don't want this to look like a painting. Here's another thing as well that I've just noticed is that we've got this log here. Now I can't remember if I took it out in the image that I posted online. I'm just going to double check now, but I can't remember if I did or not. So let's have a look. Yes, I did. I knew I would have done. I knew I would have looked at that and gone, yeah, I really don't like that. Okay, so this log here and these little bits here, very distracting, don't like them. So I'm going to get the spot remover tool, just going to adjust that to the right size, click once, and it's going to get rid of that, which is beautiful. I want to get rid of these. Like I say, it's just distracting, I don't want it. I'm going to get rid of that, I'm going to get rid of that. And then we take those, boom, gone. Now if you hadn't have seen me do that, you would not know that's ever so slightly distracting as well, so I'm going to get rid of that. But yeah, if you hadn't have seen me do that, you would not know that any of those were there. And I'm perfectly happy with that. So last thing I'm going to do, I mean, I think I'm pretty happy now with this image. I think it's pretty close to the version that I uploaded to Instagram and Facebook that people commented on. So yeah, I'm really happy with that image. So let's just have a quick look at the before and after. So let's see how this works. There we go. So on the left, you've got the before, and then you've got the after. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that the image on the right, I think that looks 100 times better than the image on the left. It is quite a drastic change, to be fair, from the two images, but I also have my camera settings that they are set in a way to capture the most detail. They're set to a very flat profile. So this image on the right-hand side, to me, it's got more character, it's got more bite. It really does give off more of how I felt when taking the image. So to me, these trees here look like they could do with just a little bit more detail and maybe a boost in exposure. And this is something that I like to use quite a lot. And the way that we do it is we use the selection tool. Obviously, you can see I've used it before. Just boost the exposure a little bit of clarity. And then basically we're just gonna paint in around here and just gonna give it a little bit more exposure. And can you just see how it's just like those reeds, it's really making those reeds pop now. We're just gonna go up here add it onto that tree, and then go along this tree line, and you can just see it's lifting the exposure, and it's just giving it that little bit more detail as we go through, just making those reeds pop in the background. And just carry on going round, and I just pop those reeds along the bottom there. I mean, they really do explode into the image after you use this technique. I'm just going to follow round along that tree line. We've not put too much of an exposure boost on it so that you can see what's been used, but there's just enough to bring out the detail in the trees. And I just think this is a great technique when it's used in a subtle manner to just get that little bit extra detail in your photo. So that's it for today, guys. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I hope I've opened up some avenues for any budding landscape photographers, giving you some ideas to maybe go down, shoot some long exposures, get into Lightroom, play around with your edits. I do like to edit, but I like to edit in a very minimalist sense. And this image is probably a bad example of me doing that, because I have done quite a lot of drastic changes to it. But that's mainly because the original image, to me, it just didn't feel, when I looked at it, it didn't feel how I felt when I recorded the video and when I got it. And that, how it looks now, gives off more of the vibe that I want it to give off. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video anyway. If you did, please hit subscribe. I think I'm gonna try and upload every Tuesday and every Friday. So yeah, the next video is going to be on Friday. It's going to be a good one because I'm up at the Lake District this weekend, so can't wait to shoot that. But I hope you enjoyed this video anyway. Hit subscribe if you did, hit the like button if you liked it, hit the bell if you want to be notified every time I upload. Apart from that, I will see you on, when will I see you? I'll see you Friday. No, it's not Friday, the next video. The next video will be Tuesday. Today's Friday. Oh well.